From unknown parts of metropolitan New York City, I am hit by this.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Hello, or good morning, good afternoon, whenever you might be listening. This is Hip and the Lip, indeed. As our theme song alluded to, it is Memorial Day week, or I guess we're the week after Memorial Day weekend. We took a week off last week. You did not hear us. That's right. A little conflict in schedule. We decided, maybe we'll put it off a week, leave our fans wanting, and come back ready to hit all of the topics, hit everything as hard as we can. Yes, that's what we do here at Hip and the Lip. So we got plenty to take up. Who the hell knows how long this is going to go on for. So buckle up, fasten your seatbelts, and enjoy the ride.
Yes, and the podcast world was turned upside down with an unannounced week hiatus of Hip and the Lip. Oh boy, and they could just once this episode gets loaded, it's like, oh gosh, the backhoe. Oh my God, my world. Fake news. Yes, Daily News was reporting that Hip and the Lip were having some issues with their relationship, and so they had to work things out in order to get back on the air. So here we are. We got plenty to talk about.
Yes, Bob Raceman was all over it.
Yeah, of course, had the inside scoop from some unidentified anonymous sources.
Yes, unidentified anonymous sources. Hashtag fake news. Hashtag fake news.
So we have NBA finals are here. NHL Stanley Cup finals are here. We have some DUIs and some HMOCs and some beer to talk about. So let's get right to it. So the NBA finals is almost finally here.
Yes,
I don't remember when the last game was even played. When was the last game even played?
Last Thursday. The 7-month
last Thursday
NBA preseason has finally come to an end.
So the NBA finals begins not tomorrow night, but Thursday night.
Yep.
The repeat of last year's finals. Oh, so exciting. Oh, just as everybody expected. Oh, I'm still not that excited. Maybe because it's still 2 more days away. Am I going to go out of my way to watch it? Maybe a little bit. Not completely. This has just been such a boring year for the NBA that I'm not geared up and pumped, and I'm kind of talking listeners out of watching it, and I don't care because that's how I feel.
So you're saying
maybe
that
you have another perspective to share.
Well, I was going to say, instead of watching the NBA Finals, you're going to be tuned in to those Mets and Yankee games, or you're going to be watching Handmaid's Tale or 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. So there's so much. Well,
I'm looking forward to the Mets game tomorrow night. We'll be watching Junior Guerra make his second start back from the DL, the Milwaukee Brewers opening day starter. To catching that one live, yes, and Jacob deGrom is taking the hill. So that's pretty much all the baseball we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is the fact that you might catch me in the stands watching some baseball. Look, so LeBron James, and company versus, those other people. Yeah, they won last year.
The guys from Oakland, California. That's right. Yes, the Golden State Warriors.
I will say, look, people have asked me who do I think's going to win, and you know what? I say I actually have no idea. I mean, this has just been so strange how neither team has really shown any weakness in the playoffs.
So we should expect some powerful, very thoughtful insights, right?
No, it's like just impossible to say because they've just been so dominant against everyone else. Well, Cleveland lost 1 game to Boston that they got trounced, but I mean, aside from that, there's been no blemishes. So I don't know. I really have. It's a complete coin flip to me. There's people saying, well, it's Golden State. They have too much firepower. It's all matchup nightmares for the Cavaliers. But I don't know. They haven't. It's been a year since last year. That went 7 games. I think it's going to be a close series.
Well, what I enjoy, well, a couple things. So here's what my first take. Number one, trilogy, the Cavaliers Warriors trilogy. That's what you keep seeing. Cavaliers Warriors 3. The trilogy could potentially conclude, although you may see a 4th sequel next year. And of course, my first question is, well, will this be as good as the Godfather trilogy, or should we expect something along the lines of the Scream trilogy? I don't know. But see, here's the first thing that jumps out at me. This is not the same series that we saw the last 2 years. Number one, 2 years ago, Cleveland had lost, their two other best players besides LeBron. It was basically LeBron versus the Warriors. So the Warriors won. What a shock. Last year, it was two teams that were pretty evenly matched that went up against each other, went toe-to-toe for 7 games. And the Cavaliers came out on top, mainly because Draymond Green was a moron in Game 4, got suspended for Game 5, and that allowed Cleveland to win Game 5 and get back in the series. This year, it's a little different because the Warriors added some guy. What's his name again? He's kind of good. Kevin Durant. That's right. They added that guy to that already stacked roster. So this is not the same series. This is basically the same Cleveland team, give or take a few bench players. And the Warriors with the same Warriors team from last year, again, give or take of, less a couple of their bench players like Bogut and Harrison Barnes. Oh, yes, I'm sure they're reeling the loss of Harrison Barnes. And they add a top 5 player in the league to that team. So it's not like we're seeing a repeat of last year's series, again, with the exception of a few minor bench players. I mean, this is a Warrior team that is beyond stacked, that is just so ridiculously talented against a very, very, very good Cavaliers team in their own right. They are the defending champions. But I mean, essentially, this is really a series that the Warriors should win if they do everything right. If everything that the ball bounces their way, if they do everything right, they should win this series. I don't think there's really any question. And it's not an insult to LeBron James. And you're going to say, "Oh, how dare people insult LeBron James by saying the Cavaliers have no chance?" I'm not saying the Cavaliers don't have a chance. Of course, they have a chance. But the Warriors are the better team. They have more talent than the Cavaliers, and it's that simple. Do they have the best player on the court? No, the Cavs do. But for me, this is a series that the Warriors should win, and I would not be surprised if they end up winning this. Honestly, if you told me right now the Warriors win this series in 5, I would not be shocked. I really would not be.
You know who might be motivated by this rhetoric, which is not solely coming from the lip. I mean, you're not to take away the quality of your your analysis. However, you're hearing fairly similar takes about the Warriors. You know who this is adding fuel to? It's fire. LeBron James. LeBron James is eating this up, and I think maybe what this sets up is him to put on a display that he has never done in his career to this point. Where this is it maybe fair to? Well, he's probably faced bigger underdog situations earlier in his career. However, he's playing the best that he ever has right now. I think that's pretty fair to say. I mean, that just seems to be the way that he's playing. Maybe this is where he puts himself clearly on a pedestal above everyone else, current and past, largely, if he delivers a dominant series in this finals. I'm not rooting for him. I'm not saying that I'm his biggest backer. But I'm just saying, this kind of talk, that he's the best player on the court, and he gets motivated. Look, how many championships has he won? Whatever. He's won. Okay, he's won 3. This is the type of stuff though that would get him motivated to just find a way to make it happen. And maybe that kind of I kind of tend to look toward, if you want to call LeBron James an underdog, it sounds weird to say it, but I guess he is. I guess if you go to Vegas, I don't know offhand what the line is.
The Warriors are favored, and they should be. I mean, they have the home court advantage, right, and they're the better team.
This is really sets the stage for LeBron to have the biggest FU in your face type of performance. And so for that, it might be interesting to watch. Not that I love the guy. I don't. But that, to me alone, makes it interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, from that perspective, just from a Cavalier perspective, from a LeBron perspective, I agree. And I think that when you look at this series, I mean, you look at the way that the Cavaliers and the Warriors have steamrolled the playoffs. And as you mentioned, LeBron has had, I mean, arguably his most incredible performance in the playoffs throughout in his whole career. I mean, he has been that dominant. He has been that good, other than Game 3, where everybody was wondering, oh, what happened to LeBron? What happened to LeBron against the Celtics? In which I do believe the conspiracy theory that Adam Silver probably called LeBron and said, hey, give us a little intrigue in the conference finals, maybe ease up a little bit, and maybe you're not feeling good for Game 3. Let Boston get a game here to make it a 2-1 series and make people actually somewhat intrigued. But I mean, other than that, LeBron has been absolutely brilliant in these playoffs. He has done everything and anything and everything. And I mean, look, we've seen him put on the Superman cape before in the playoffs. We saw him do it last year. We've seen him do it, you know, in moments during Miami's the 2 championships he won with Miami. And when he does put on the Superman cape, nobody is stopping him. Nobody on the planet is stopping him. And we know that nobody can stop him when he is playing at his absolute best. And I mean, does he need motivation? Does he need the extra fuel to add to his fire? I really don't see why. I mean, again, people saying that they think the Warriors are going to win is not disrespecting LeBron. I know, you know, he has to, people like him, you know, that have that type of ego and that show that at times inferiority complex that he does whenever he gets a little bit of criticism. I mean, that I guess somebody like that needs that. But the bottom line is this is a series that is, again, relatively even in the sense that the both teams have a lot of talent, but the Warriors to me are the better team. And I think that, I think that they're going to end up winning the series just because they have more talent. They have more depth to their roster than Cleveland does. Can LeBron James pull this out? Can him and his his teammates, Irving and Love, who's been very, very good in the playoffs, and guys like Channing Frye and J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, all former Knicks for you, and Kyle Korver, can those guys, do enough to help LeBron to win this series? Absolutely, they can. If Draymond Green loses his head again, can something like that happen and allow the Cavaliers to maybe pull out a victory that in a game that they maybe shouldn't win? Absolutely. Can Durant just have a game where he just can't hit the broadside of a barn, or Curry is not hit, where they don't have like everybody firing on all cylinders in Golden State and they can pull out a game maybe on the road? Absolutely, they can. But do I think it's going to happen? Honestly, I don't. I just don't think that they have enough, and I think Golden State has just way too much firepower. And I think they are better defensively.
Just being honest with us. What else is new?
Oh, always.
That's your gentle way of trying to not align with this possibility that I'm throwing out there. And I know you're going to say, well, yeah, well, of course it's possible. All right. Look, here's one other interesting dynamic to me. So how many years approximately do you think LeBron James is going to play for the remainder of his career? Just off the top of your head, ballpark, if you have to guess.
How many more years will he play in the league?
Yeah.
I would say he's probably going to play. What is he? 30, 31? How old is he now? 30, 31?
Something like that.
32. Yep. I'm actually not even 100% sure. I would say he'll probably play at least another 7 years in the league. How's that? A nice odd number for you.
So add 10 years to that. 10 to 15 years after he retires. I think we're going to begin to realize how unbelievable of a player. I mean, we realize it now, but it's almost like we take it for granted. We know that he's that good. But once he's gone, and look, who knows what the future holds? How often do players of his quality come around? Obviously not very often. Never. But I think we almost take it for granted for how good he is because he's been so amazing for so many years in a row now that, like, we can't fully appreciate it in the moment because we just expect it of him. But once he's gone, and the quality in the league suddenly is just going to drop a level because you're not going to have a player that's amazing as he is, and then we're really going to appreciate at that point. I think when I say we, I don't mean me and you. I mean the greater sports community. It's like you don't realize how amazing something is until it's gone. And we're not like, I don't know, I just feel like there's a slight lack of true appreciation of how unbelievable, just on the court player he is. And we say that, we still praise it, but I don't think we go out of our way enough to appreciate it and as a greater sports community in the moment. Let's move on. We're going to come back to NBA unless you want to just give a quick reply to that.
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying is definitely fair. I do. I think part of it though stems from the fact that I mean, LeBron James was anointed by ESPN and the media. I mean, he was anointed King James from the second he stepped on the court, and I think that there were people, and there are still people that don't like him. I think there are people that are turned off by him because again, he is a very, very egomaniacal at times, arrogant athlete, and he doesn't hide it. He's had plenty of moments throughout his career where he's been criticized, where he's earned the criticism that he's gotten, not just for the decision and all that, just, for various things throughout his career. And, games where he hasn't, it looked like, put a full effort in, games where he's completely disappeared, whether it be the game against the Celtics before he left Cleveland for the first time, or again, I think I mentioned on this show before when he was mock cheered by the Miami crowd in game 6 of, it was the 2012 or 13 finals. It might have been 13 finals, where he finally showed some intensity in a game 6 elimination game of the finals, and his own home crowd mock cheered him. And I still remember that to this day, and that did happen. If you don't believe me, go pull up the YouTube video. For those who would think that didn't happen, it did happen. It did.
Fake news.
So, yes, true, not fake news. Hashtag true story. But yes, LeBron James is one of the greatest players of all time. There's no debate to that. People want to argue that he is the best of all time. To me, and again, I didn't see Russell or Chamberlain or Robertson or those guys play, or even Magic or Bird in their primes. I saw them at the very, very tail end. But I watched Michael Jordan play, and to me, there will never be a better player than Michael Jordan, and that's just how I feel, LeBron James included. But nobody has ever stepped on a court, on an NBA court, with more physical talent and ability than LeBron James. And I don't think we will ever in our lifetime see another guy step onto an NBA court with LeBron James' physical tools and abilities. And I mean, look, the guy doesn't have anything else to prove. He's going to have so many records when he retires, and he's going to have won multiple championships. Obviously, he's already won 3. Maybe he'll have another 1 or 2 or 3. We'll see how his career goes. But I think there is definitely, I think there is validity to the way you describe the way he's perceived, the way he's looked at, and the fact that people probably do take him for granted when you watch an NBA game and, that he plays in. And, we'll get into, but before, and we will get into a discussion about the state of the NBA. I think that's what you were alluding to. Just a quick rundown of the matchup before we move on. And I know you said that you're not sure how much you're going to watch of the series. Look, the series is intriguing because you have 2 excellent teams with a lot of star power. And here's the keys for me in this series. I think that the only way that the Cavaliers are going to be able to beat the Warriors, and you'll have people say something differently, and you're going to hear so many different things that'll be said over the next few days and even during the series. I think that the way that the Cavaliers are going to beat the Warriors is by slowing them down in transition, limiting their fast break points, and being able to out rebound them. Now, you want to say that's simplistic, and that's fine. It sort of is. But the Warriors are just, they have so many weapons that Cleveland, they're not going to be able to stop all of them. Some of them are going to have, whether it's Durant and Curry one night, whether it's Thompson other night, whether it's Green other night, whether it's Iguodala coming off the bench. There are going to be guys that are going to have nights where they're going to put up 30-plus points, potentially 40-plus points, and you're not going to stop them. So the question is, can you slow down the other guys, limit the easy baskets, close out on three-pointers, because the Cavaliers are terrible at that. If you just watch these playoffs, watch the Cavaliers play, they are awful at defending the three at times, at least closing out and contesting three-pointers. Can they do that and not allow the Warriors to have all these open looks? Because if they do, they'll get killed. Can they limit, again, the fast break points? And I guess the Warriors haven't been as good on the fast break as you would think, but they also, their motion offense with constant moving and guys cutting and hitting guys going to the basket. Can they defend against that? Can Thompson make his presence felt in this series? Tristan Thompson may actually be the most important guy in this series for the Cavaliers. I mean, you know LeBron and Kyrie will be a given. Look, Kevin Love had a terrible finals last year. He was awful. He was wretched. He has been very, very good in the playoffs so far. Can he continue what he's been doing? Can he give them another threat from the outside? Can they hit their threes, Cleveland? And they're the best. They've been awesome at hitting three-pointers. I think they're number 1, number 2 in the playoffs, the three-pointers made or something. They have, obviously, that LeBron will hit his, and Kyrie and Love. J.R. Smith, Korver, Shumpert. Channing Frye, can those guys get off enough threes and hit enough of them to keep the Cavaliers close in some of these games? That's what we're gonna be watching for in the series. And for the Warriors, will they miss Andrew Bogut is a question that I've had. I mean, really since Bogut left last summer. Will they miss him as a rim protector in the playoffs, particularly in the finals against Cleveland? Here we are. They have a couple guys that have replaced him, Pachulia, McGee. They've rotated them in and out. When they go to this small lineup, it doesn't matter, but they didn't have Bogut in, playing big minutes last year anyway. But when he was in, he was a great rim protector. They don't have that guy. They don't have him this year. But can Pachulia and McGee give them impactful minutes? And when they go small, can the Cavaliers take advantage of Draymond Green playing center and being, the tallest guy on the court, or, their only interior presence on the court, at least on the defensive end for the Warriors? A lot of questions, a lot of interesting matchups, a lot of interesting moving parts to the series. I think it should be. I don't think it'll go 5. I know I said I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 5. I really think that this is going to be at least 6, if not 7. But the one thing I will say is, remember the finals last year? Everybody thinks of it as an epic 7-game series. You know what? It really wasn't, because every single game except for Game 7, the margin of victory was double digits. So hopefully we'll have competitive games this year too, in addition to the amount of games that we'll see in this series. So that's my hope. I will be watching because it is. I mean, again, you are watching LeBron James and Durant and Curry and Thompson and Irving. You're watching great players go at each other. You haven't seen it all playoffs, which have been terrible. Let's see what we can get in this NBA Finals, and the NBA is hoping and praying that this will not be the most waste of time season that any professional sports league has ever seen. If the Warriors, come in and just blow the Cavaliers out of the water and don't give us any kind of drama or intrigue in this series. So, all right.
Well, Game 1 Thursday night before Game 1 of the NBA Finals, we have Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yes.
Tomorrow night, Wednesday night. So Game 1, the Penguins, who are going for consecutive Stanley Cup titles, defeated the Nashville Predators 5-3. So let's do like a review, hybrid discussion for a few minutes on these two teams. When we last spoke, the series was not set. And sure enough, the Penguins go 7 games and overtime victory in Game 7 to win the Eastern Conference and advance to the Stanley Cup. So the Predators were an 8th seed, if I'm not mistaken. So
they were the 16th overall best team in the NHL.
So there you have it. And we were, in fact, in Nashville last year during the playoffs when the Predators were in the playoffs, and you could just sense the energy in the city. So you can only imagine what it's like now. I mean, that city
it's insane.
Has energy on any day without sports. So it's got to be fun to be in Nashville right now. Penguins with one of the best, if not the best player in the league, at it to try to capture another cup in consecutive years. So look, what were just one or two thoughts of the series going in, and then give us, the analysis from Game 1.
Well, I mean,
and how your thoughts going in may have altered slightly.
Yeah, right. Well, did you watch any Game 7 against the Pens Ottawa Game 7 on Thursday night, double overtime? Did you get to see any of that? That was
I did not stay up. I did not do that, but I did get to see some.
All right. I mean, I just have to comment that was an epic Game 7. Just an incredible game. I mean, start to finish. That first overtime, I was on the edge of my seat watching it. I don't really have a rooting interest, and I was still just like on the edge of my seat. Just incredible, that game. And but I mean, the Penguins Nashville series, where you have the Penguins that, like you said, boast two of the best players on the planet, if not the two best players on the planet, in Sidney Crosby and Kenny Malkin, of course. Who else would I be talking about? Do you think I was talking about Nick Bonino or Matt Cullen? No, not those guys. But the Penguins, perennial powerhouse ever since Crosby was drafted. a decade ago now, over a decade ago now. It's unbelievable that he's been in the league this long. He's already won 2 cups, trying to win a back-to-back for the first time in almost 20 years since the Red Wings did it in '98. And this is as close to as David and Goliath a matchup that you can possibly have in the NHL. I mean, this is, again, what's the irony of that statement is that everything that you've been hearing about the NHL is just how parity rules the day, the best team and the worst team, that you just don't have that big of a disparity between the top teams and the worst teams, or at least in the playoffs, the 1 seed, if you the Capitals as the President Trophy winners, and then the 16 seed in Nashville Predators, who of course are in the Stanley Cup Finals. And that's been one of the common themes of the playoffs. But it's the Penguins, powerhouse, Crosby, Malkin against the upstart Nashville Predators, the non-traditional hockey market. Questioned a decade ago whether or not they were going to be there, in a year or two, as the BlackBerry guy was trying to buy them and move them to Hamilton, Ontario. And here they are, and that place is just absolutely bonkers and gaga for their Predators. I mean, if you want to get into the building for a game 3, you're going to have to pay, just get in the building and have the worst seat in the house. You're paying, close to $1,000. I mean, that just tells you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, worst seat in the house, you're paying close to $1,000. You want the best seat, you're paying, I haven't looked at it, but like probably around $10,000, something insane like that.
That would be probably more than if the Islanders made the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh yes, I'm sure that if the Barclays seats at the Barclays Center would be absolutely, you probably have to take a second mortgage out in your house to get those seats.
We'll look forward to that day to compare the secondary.
Yes, maybe next year with Garth Snow leading the way. Yes. Oh, by the way, the Islanders hired Scott Gomez as their assistant coach. Everybody get excited. Scott Gomez is on the staff. Anyways, but really, when you look at these two teams, I mean, you're going to hear, everything that you've heard about, and we'll get to game 1, but everything that you heard about Nashville's defensive unit, the top 4 guys, Subban, Ekholm, Ellis, Yossi, 4 guys that are all standout defensemen, 4 guys that are very, very gifted at moving the puck, gifted at being able to create offensive opportunities, joining the rush, creating offense in the back end. They're all gifted in their own rights at being able to do that. PK Subban, I said it at the time, I said it on this show, that when Montreal made that trade, it was June of last year, when Montreal made that trade, they were going to rue the day that they ever made that trade. And here we are, a year later, 1 season later, and PK Subban is playing for the Stanley Cup. And he has been nothing but brilliant, nothing short of brilliant for the Predators in this postseason. Apparently, he's playing injured. I didn't even realize. Apparently, he has a herniated disc in his back. I didn't even know. But 4, their top 8 scorers, 4 of them are those defensemen I just mentioned. They're missing their best number 1 center in Ryan Johansson. That was a terrible loss for them in the last series against the Ducks. But everything is basically about their top 4 defensemen and their goalie, Pekka Rinne, who's been there since, I think, 2004. He was a 6th or 7th round pick. He's been there, his whole career. He's been there for so long. Finally, they break through, get to the finals with Pekka Rinne, who's been a very good goalie throughout his career. He's had, his ups and downs, but overall been very good, and he's been absolutely tremendous in this postseason. I think came into this series with a 1.7 goals against average and a .941 save percentage. I mean, those are off the chart numbers. Now, the save percentage has come down since the first series against the Blackhawks when he let up literally 3 goals. I think it was 3 goals in the 4 games or something like that. But since then, it has come down, but he still played very well. We'll get to last night. I know you're thinking last night, game 1. We'll get to it. Overall, though, he's had a tremendous playoffs, and they are this success of this team is completely predicated on Rinne doing what he's been doing and their defensemen basically doing it all, playing stout in their own zone, which they have done, and Subban and Ekholm have been the top pairing for that team, playing against the top units, offensive units for every team. It'll be interesting to see the chess match between Sullivan and Laviolette, 2 American-born head coaches, mind you. That's been a theme as well for this series. But it'll be interesting to see if, you don't get last change, of course, on the road, but it'll be interesting to see if Laviolette looks to, put Subban against Crosby or Malkin, or if he just kind of rotates them between Crosby and Malkin. But you're also going to you're also going to see Sullivan try to exploit matchups against Matt Irwin, and I think Giannis Weber is his name. Those are the other two defensemen for Nashville. And you're going to see him try and do everything he can to get Crosby and Malkin down against those guys as opposed to the other four. And you saw a little bit of that chess match going on last night. And then Pittsburgh, of course, I mean, they do it with their two best players, their depth down the middle. Their defense is all banged up. And you saw it last night. Their defense is completely banged up. No Chris Letang, who they haven't had the whole playoffs. They're relying on guys like Ron Hainsey and Trevor Daley and Brian Dumoulin to play big minutes for them, and Justin Schultz. They're relying on those guys to play big minutes for them. And really, they're going to have a hell of a time against that Nashville forecheck, because Nashville, I can guarantee you, went to school on what Ottawa did to Pittsburgh in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals, when they jumped all over the defense and caused a myriad of turnovers and scoring opportunities, and they blew them out of the water in that game. Ottawa did Pittsburgh. I can guarantee you they went to school on what they did in that game. Ottawa, of course, plays a very different system, so they didn't take advantage of Pittsburgh's weaknesses on defense, especially transition the puck up to their forwards. So, and I think last night you saw, and I guess we can move into last night, because you saw last night Nashville was the better team from puck drop to the last second ticking off on the clock. Pittsburgh was bad last night, other than a little stretch in the first period when they got a 5-on-3. I don't know how much you saw that game last night, but the one thing I wanted to get into specifically about last night, and I don't know if you saw this, if you had any thoughts about this, but we've talked a little bit about the coaches' challenge in the replay system in the NHL. And there's been, it's been controversial and there's been debate. I think more people dislike it than not. But the one thing that we consistently saw with these offside challenges was just how long they took and how ridiculous they were when you're talking about a fraction of a millimeter of, was the skate off the ice? Where was the puck in the zone before the player was? And you're basically breaking it down to like the most like minute frame just to be able to try and discern whether or not the play was onside. And we saw that time after time again in the regular season. And guess what? We got that again in Game 1 last night. What happened on that PK Subban goal, where I guarantee you not a single person watching that game live, if they say they saw offsides there, they're lying. I guarantee you they did not see offsides. If they did, they're lying. There was nobody that thought or for a second said, oh, I wonder if this is going to be challenged for an offside when Subban scored the goal. It was a innocent-looking Subban has the puck in the at center ice, passes the puck to Philip Forsberg, who's straddling the line. A lot of players will do that. They'll straddle the line, make sure that they're onside when they accept the pass, and then they enter the zone. That's exactly what happened. A minute or a minute and a half later, after cycling the puck, passing it around, Subban scores. 1-0. Everybody's excited. If you're a Nashville fan, yay. Oh, wait a minute. Here comes a coach's challenge. And now we're going to have 70 million replays and angles. And, was his skate off the ice? And, however long later, it was at least like 5 or 6 minutes later. Finally, they come back. Offside, no goal. And you know what? I actually don't know if that call was right. I guess from what I've read, the call was supposedly right. But just within the spirit of the rule, that was so ridiculous and so embarrassing for the league that they just sucked the life and the energy completely out of that game by having that replay go on for as long as it did, having that review go on for as long as it did. And the fact that they're going to reduce this to a fraction of a millimeter as to whether or not the puck was in before the skate was off the ice is just so ludicrous and so embarrassing. And the league should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen in their marquee event. The one thing we ask, just first off, get rid of this and be consistent with the damn officiating, because I haven't ranted about the officiating in the playoffs, but it has been terrible overall. I know it's a little bit of a separate issue from the replay, but it's just been an issue all playoffs, and this really was just the icing on the cake because they embarrassed themselves.
Your ask is, but my ask is, what do you? Fine. I get your points. Yes, nobody wants a 5-minute stoppage on a play that ends up being a fraction of a millimeter. Do you suggest that they should just eliminate the possibility of changing that call?
Yes.
Not do it.
Yes, eliminate it. I don't know how you can do it where you can say, well, you can challenge this type of offside because. Look,
no, you can't.
I mean, like the spirit of the rule was to try and, get the offside call right on like an odd man rush. If there's a breakaway or an odd man rush where you have, a blatant offside that's missed, not something like this where the puck enters and they cycle around and the offside had zero effect on the goal. You know what? Just abolish it. Get rid of it. Go. How many goals in the history of the league have been scored, where the puck was in the zone for a few minutes and then the team scores a goal and it was offside on the entry, but nobody noticed it because it was completely undiscernible to the naked eye and nobody gave it a first thought, let alone a second thought. How many of those goals have been scored in the history of the league? And now we're trying to reduce it to the embarrassing. The NHL should be embarrassed. And Gary Bettman, in his little State of the Union before the game, the replay is working the way it was intended to. Really? This is what you intended to do, to suck the life out of a game by stopping it for a ridiculous replay challenge? No, the Penguins, hey, look, they saw something. Hey, let's throw caution into the wind. They probably didn't know. They probably still, who knows? Still to this point, who knows if that really was offsides or not? It was that close. I mean, and even baseball too. I don't want to get off the tangent about baseball, but you know what? Baseball, I would say, get rid of it there too. Get rid of it there too. It's so out of hand with the instant replay and the reviews and challenging and we're going to stop the game for this. It's just so ridiculous. But last night really was embarrassing for the league, and I really hope that. I mean, if they abolish it tomorrow, for the remainder of this series, I'd be happy. Anyway, so after that, Penguins scored 3 goals, 5-on-3 power play, which. One of the penalties, they got a 2-minute 5-on-3. One of those penalties may have been a phantom call. But Malkin scores on a shot that should have been stopped by Rene. He did not have a good game last night. The fourth goal of the game. Well, here's what's interesting about last night. And this is what you heard about last night. The theme of last night was the fact that the Penguins, so they score a goal to make it 3-0. Nick Bonino is on a rush down the right wing, centers the puck right in front of the net. The puck deflects. Well, it's sticked away by Pecorine. It goes right into the crease. He sticks it away, tries to poke check it away, whatever. It bounces off of the Predator defenseman, Matthias Ekholm, bounces off of his shin pad and into the net. So there's your third goal. Now, that was at 1943 of the first period. So there's 17 seconds to go in the first period. When that goal, it gets scored, that's a shot on goal for the Penguins. 3-0. The next shot on goal, I don't know if you knew this. Well, listen to this. The next shot on goal for the Pittsburgh Penguins came at 16:43 of the third period. And that shot made the game 4-3 and ended up being the game-winning goal. So the Penguins went 37 minutes and 9 seconds without a shot on goal.
That's the
and their next shot after the goal to make it 3-0 makes it 4-3 and ends up being the game-winning goal. That is whack.
Penguins went 2 full periods without shot on
goal. Almost 2 full periods.
That is incredible. That's
think about that.
And they still won.
And they won. And they still win. There you go. Parity at its best. I mean, the Predators and the shots ended up being 26-12 Predators, and that disparity was really an indicator of the game because the Predators jumped on Pittsburgh from puck drop, and they were relentless until the last second ticked off, and the Penguins were lucky to win that game. That's all I'll say. And the Predators tied the game.
If you're the Predators, do you come away from that, dejected that you played so well and didn't win, or do you take it like, yeah, we can hang with these guys, we lost, but we played better, and if we play even slightly worse than we did in game 1, we should have a really good chance of winning.
I think the latter. I think they have such a home ice advantage, even if they lose game 2. I'm still, Pittsburgh is still. I think they're going to make adjustments, and Pittsburgh's still a very good team. Again, they have a deficiency on defense, but they're still a very good team. Even if they lose game 2, I would still give the Predators a chance to win this series because they have such a home ice advantage. They've only lost 1 game at home. That crowd is going to be absolutely insane, and I think the Predators coming out of last night say to themselves, you know what? we can skate with these guys. We can outskate these guys. We're going to put a ton of pressure on their defense. And, as long as, Rene, recomposes himself and settles down and, again, he didn't have a terrible game, but he had a shaky game. I think the Predators are definitely going to come out with a confidence after game one, and I think they're going to come out flying again in game two, and Pittsburgh's going to have to match their speed, intensity, and if they don't, the Predators could very well tie that series at 1 after game 2, and who knows, maybe it's 3-1 coming back to Pittsburgh for game 5 in favor of the Predators. So we'll see, but it's going to be an interesting final.
Game 2 again tomorrow night. Well, for those listening now, it's tonight. They're listening on Wednesday.
Yes, indeed.
Game 2, but interesting start to the series. No matter how you look at it.
It should be David and Goliath, but it's yesterday. David was Pittsburgh. It is
versus the Goliath versus Goliath of the NBA, which played out completely differently this year.
Yeah.
Again, you make your point about the Predators being the 16th best team in the NHL, now in the finals. When was the last time an 8 seed in the NBA made the finals?
Never.
Never. Okay.
I don't think ever. No. Well, at least with the current format, no.
And there have been other 8 seeds in the NHL that have made the finals. The Kings were an 8 seed, if I recall, not too many years ago, and
Yep, 2012. Yep, and you're right. The Kings made the and won the Stanley Cup that year, backstopped by Jonathan Quick, who had an insane playoff, but. We've seen we saw Edmonton go to the finals as an 8 seed. I think right after the lockout. As you mentioned, LA. Actually, I think the last 8 seed in the NBA to win not a championship, but their first round series. I think, and if somebody knows better, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the Golden State Warriors. I think the Golden State Warriors were the last 8 seed to win against to beat the 1 seed and win a playoff series against the Dallas Mavericks, the Dirk Nowitzki-led Dallas Mavericks, and the Golden State Warriors, if I remember correctly, were led by Baron Davis that year. Remember that guy? That right? Of course. So there you go. Just a little context there, but it's remarkable just how the NBA and the NHL could not be polar opposites. The way the leagues are constructed, the way these playoffs have played out. And I just find it such a fascinating, compare and contrast when you look at the NBA and the NHL, and they're structured very similarly. The playoff structure it's similar. It's not what it used to be, almost exactly the same. It's not anymore because of the NHL stupid bracket challenge, and we can't reseed, and we have to have the Capitals and Penguins play in the second round. But it is just remarkable seeing that stark disparity where you have the 2 super teams in the NBA and the Warriors and the Cavaliers that were basically created by an economic structure that fostered and facilitated this, where players are, able to make a ton of money, maybe not as much if they stay with their team, but they look to form these super teams so they can have a chance to win. Whereas in the NHL, essentially super teams are stifled by a salary cap that does not grow at all, that goes up, by minimal percentage points each year. And this year they're talking about maybe a flat cap going into next year. We don't have to get into all of that, but you're seeing how these salary cap systems in the league just completely cultivate very different environments in the NHL and the NBA, where parity rules in the NHL. And again, some people do like, the NHL and the way it's set up. Charles Barkley being one of them, who has gotten a lot of headlines by saying that by going out of his way by saying that he'd rather watch the NHL playoffs over the NBA playoffs, and essentially, maybe indirectly, but disparaging the NBA playoffs by, alluding to the blowouts and the non-competitiveness that we've seen throughout the entire postseason in the NBA. And the NHL, you've had a lot of intrigue and drama, but question is, how good are the Pittsburgh Penguins really? There's been a lot of criticism. They've been dominated at times during these playoffs by Washington. Ottawa dominated them in Game 3, but I mean, Pittsburgh was clearly the better team, I thought, in that series. But even the first round series against Columbus looked like they were the better team at times. And then Washington blew them out of the water in Game 6. Everybody thought this is finally Washington's time. But to Pittsburgh's credit, they did put on a clinic in Game 7. They were incredible in Game 7. They didn't win by accident. That one, they were the better team by a country mile. And then you have the Predators, the 16th best team in the league in the regular season. Here they are in the Stanley Cup Finals, lacking for star power up front, really lacking anything up front. You look at these forwards. No Johansson, he's injured. All right, nothing you can do about an injury. But you look at the rest of those forwards and you say, who are these guys? Victor Arvidsson, very good year, but who is this guy? Philip Forsberg. Okay, I think I may have heard it. If you're a casual fan, I think I may know who that guy is. I've heard the name. He's a very good player, but not a household name like a Crosby or a Malkin or an Ovechkin or one of those guys. And all the star power for Nashville rests on their defense, but again, not a roster that you look at and say, "Wow, this is a Stanley Cup winning, Stanley Cup championship roster." Whereas the NBA, the NBA Finals, you look at the Cavaliers and the Warriors, and you go back to last season and you say, all right, same time, next year after Game 7 ended, because you knew that the Warriors and Cavaliers would essentially be the same, even though you didn't know if Durant was going to go there. But you look at those rosters and you say, yeah, it was inevitable that these two teams are going to go to the finals and not just go, but go 24-1 in the process. And it is just absolutely remarkable what we have seen. And what you think, I know I've just talked a lot here. So, I mean, if you have any thoughts on that, but I just find it absolutely really fascinating the way that these two leagues right now. And I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. I mean, you'll have people again that'll say they like the parity, whereas people for the NBA will say, oh, I love the star power and I want to see the two Goliaths go at it, and worlds collide. Let's see it. And
sometimes I wonder if it's an apples and oranges comparison. I mean, the types of games are so different.
It is, but this is as polar opposite as you can get, I think. Yes, there's a little bit apples to oranges because of different sports, but
you're comparing them, and I just wonder if, look, it's natural to want to compare them, but they're just so. I mean, the games are so different. Obviously, look, the NHL, there's only a handful of goals scored a game, whereas in the NBA, it's scoring 100 points a game or more, and with the NBA.
But just in terms of how close the games are, the NHL, the games are usually close and competitive. The NBA, this whole playoffs, there've been so many blowouts.
I wonder if you compare I feel like goals scored is not like is not the best way to measure the comparison of the quality of teams, right? It's more the Corsi or whatever you want, quality shots. And I wonder if you do those comparisons.
There have been a lot of those.
There
have been a lot of those.
Does it still? But do you still have quite the disparity that we perceive it to be? That's based on the goal score. So what I mean is, like, if you look at and I don't want us to answer the question. Let's move on to the next topic. But I'll just leave this thought for us to think about next time, maybe.
Yeah, right.
If you just look at let's say this year's NHL playoff bracket, the shot attempts for each team from the 1 seed to the 8 seed in each round, was the level of play quite as the same parity than the mere outcome of the games themselves? Is there a more wider gap, if you will, than we perceive it to be based on that stat? I have no idea, but it's just a thought, because if the games are decided by goals, which are maybe not the best measure of how well a team played that day. Whereas in the NBA, I mean, because it's an accumulation of points and it's a lot of points, more often than not, the team that scores more points played a better game. Of course, there's margin of victory, but
that's a fair point.
To think about.
You make a
to
fair
see
point.
if there's less parity than we might perceive there to be based on looking at it from that perspective. Okay, so we have to talk about Tiger Woods. I mean, breaking news, right? Guy's not playing golf, and it's breaking news. And within 2 hours after he's released from the jail, it's breaking news on every news channel that you can turn to, at least every sports news channel. And you know what? Look, I mean, my immediate reaction to it is, well, I finally heard the police report said that he was passed out at the wheel, the car was running. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was no alcohol in his system. It apparently had to do with medications he was taking. He was very groggy, whatever. So people are talking today about, prescription medication addictions and stuff like that, and how they, it's easy to succumb to that, how it's a serious epidemic, et cetera, et cetera. To me, it's just one of these classic situations where it just brings an issue to the spotlight that people feel impassioned to discuss because something happened in the news. But after a week, people are going to go back to living their lives like it never happened and nothing's going to change. And that's the part of it, to me, that's kind of frustrating. And I know that's just the way that the world works when it comes to these types of stories. But it's a growing theme that I'm not kind of noticing in a lot of facets in life, not just this situation, in a lot of them, in politics, in terrorism, in sports, in whatever. People are, it's easy for people to criticize from the comfort of their own homes, on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever, right? But to me, a criticism lacks little value if the person doesn't offer a logical potential solution with like data or step-by-step actions to take. It's easy to criticize and then just walk away and
the anonymous criticize
but who the hell cares, and what value does it provide? There's so many things in life that we can criticize, but you're not value with your criticism.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I do, when these anonymous posters, whether it be on Twitter or Mr. Hip, I think we may have lost you, so I'm just going to talk. But yeah, I mean, like, these people, like there's a news story, and we know how the never-ending news cycle works. And there's a story comes out, and people have their critiques and they have their comments, and they can hide behind the anonymity that the social media, the internet provides. And but right, if they're not offering any solution and they're just offering these, criticisms that are for a lot of people baseless and that don't offer any kind of value, and they don't offer anything to solve or provide a solution to the issue, then yeah, it just creates a lot of the vitriol. It's just a lot of messages that gets lost. Excuse me, and all the vitriol that we've seen, whether it's like you said in politics or sports or other world issues that make the never-ending 24-hour news cycle. But it's just unfortunate that, and this became the mugshot seen around the world as soon as Tiger Woods was arrested, and it was just everywhere.
ESPN didn't share the original mugshot; they photoshopped it. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that actually.
ESPN photoshopped the mugshot. They changed the color of the background, and they actually gave him a crew cut where his hair wasn't quite as disheveled, and it looked groomed at the top.
Really?
Can you believe that? And they actually acknowledged it on the air.
That they not used the original. What's the point of that? Why'd they do that for? What is that? What does that serve? What purpose does that serve?
Standard injury or something ridiculous. They photoshopped the mugshot of Tiger Woods.
It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
They acknowledged it. Somebody called him out.
Jeez, yeah. Where's everybody saying ESPN? What the hell is the matter with you?
You shouldn't be laughing. I'm sorry. It's a serious thing. Look, whatever Tiger Woods is. Look, I mean, I'm not saying we should have sympathy for the guy. I don't know. We don't know what he's exactly going through, and it's not fair for us to judge him. I mean, it looks bad, and hopefully he gets help or whatever he needs and all that good stuff. But, it's just. And this shouldn't be the story that brings us out of me to talk about how people are just, conveniently criticize and do no more and all that. But I don't know. It's just another one of these stories where it happens. And that's really
it's just to me. I mean, it really, and if he has an issue with pain medication or so I guess it's confirmed that alcohol was not at all involved in this, and then he just mixed medications. And I mean, to me, it seems like really I don't know why he was going out at 3:00 in the morning. Maybe he wanted to get some cheese gordita crunches at Taco Bell. He was hungry, or maybe he just wanted to get away, leave the house, thought he can drive. I mean, he probably should have known. I'm sure he didn't know that he couldn't, but he still chose to. But look, just to have all of these stories come out in this perspective, and this is rock bottom for Tiger Woods, and look, this is just another tale and never ending stuff. What are we talking about here? I mean, nobody got hurt, so that's the most important thing of the story. He was pulled over. They found him. Luckily, they found him. They were able to, get him out, out of that situation. And he was. Again, he didn't hurt himself, he didn't hurt anybody else, and that's really the most important thing to take out of the story. And there's nothing else to talk about and add this commentary and analysis of the situation. What are we talking about here? Nothing happened. Well, I mean, he was arrested because he refused to take a breathalyzer, I guess, or maybe they were like, "Oh, it's Tiger Woods. I'll just arrest him and bring him in." And who knows? But we probably don't have all the facts, and just that there's all this stuff coming out about this. I mean, bottom line is Tiger Woods is done with golf. I mean, he's not relevant anymore on the golf landscape, on really on any kind of land. Right now, he's a private citizen. He's just doing whatever he's doing, and if he has an issue with this, you hope he gets help. I mean, there's been a lot that's been coming out. I think if you were going to mention this, a lot coming out about how this is a big problem in our country, opioid and prescription medication abuse. And it absolutely is. And you see it written about a lot, actually. I mean, I see it a lot. I haven't really followed it that closely, but it absolutely is a problem. And if Tiger Woods has an issue, then you hope he gets help. I mean, that's it. Like he got help with his other addiction.
More importantly, he gets help and he tries to help other people.
Yeah, and be a spokesman for it. Be a spokesperson for it. Like I think, at least he gave the appearance that he tried to with his other addiction, that last addiction that came out all those years ago. But I mean, but right now, Tiger Woods is not a relevant figure on the sports landscape. I mean, that's it. He's still one of the most prominent names on the planet. I mean, he still is he's still Tiger Woods, and that's why he garners so much attention the second anything like this happens. But to me, there was no story here. You see it and you're like, oh, I'll read into this, what happened. But then when you read it, you're like, all right, so what happened? Nothing happened. They found him. Okay.
All right.
He was in some kind of stupor. Okay. So what? All these articles then come out. I have this perspective to add. You know what? Nobody cares about your perspectives. Whoever you are, go away. Just
yes, we offered our own. So
yes, well, we at least think we're offering perspectives on things that people actually have an interest in, and have a degree of care about, as opposed to Tiger Woods' DUI. I mean, geez. All right. Anyway, next.
Yep. All right. Next.
So, John Mara.
No, let's save John Mara.
All right. Well, we'll get back.
We'll let him marinate for a week. Yep.
All right. Well, Mets and Yankees. Mets kind of sort of righting the ship a little bit. Yankees cruising right along.
Tyler Phil started tonight. Exactly as you all
Yes, the amazing. Was it right? Tyler Pell, that's his name. Well, at least Mets and Lugo are coming back, right? So the Met fans can rejoice. They're coming back.
No, they can't rejoice. Don't rejoice. I mean, it's got to be taken in stride. How many innings are you going to get out of these guys is anybody's question. So we'll see.
And the Yankees cruise right along as we have hit them. Well, we said Memorial Day is one of the benchmarks. They were third of the way. Think about it. They were the third of the way through the baseball season. A third of the baseball season has completed. That's amazing. So
just like that.
Yes, indeed. A lot of surprises. And I guess we'll get more into baseball as the NBA and NHL come to their conclusions.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
All right. Well, I guess we will then move on to the hipster moment of the Zeniths. So we got a few things, and actually, I think they will all come out of yesterday's Game 1 in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. How about that? So I don't know. Well, so what I would do if I were you and everybody else listening, if you have not seen, Peter Laviolette, who is the coach of the Nashville Predators, former Islander coach, of course, fired by Mike Milbury after a couple of years. And I guess we don't have to get into that. Although, for all the Islander fans that are like, oh, we fired him, he was also fired by Carolina and Philadelphia. And he was fired by Philadelphia 3 games into the season. And also, and I wanted to throw this out there too about Mr. Laviolette. We'll get to just a second. Now, the 4th coach in NHL history to lead 3 teams to the Stanley Cup Finals. The other coaches being the Hall of Famer Scotty Bowman, the legendary Hall of Famer Scotty Bowman, Dick Irwin, also Hall of Famer and legend in his own right, and Mike Keenan, Ranger fans. Yes, Mike Keenan has led 3 teams to the Cup Finals. That would be the Blackhawks, the Flyers, and the only one he won it with was the Rangers. Yes, very good. But so anyway, Peter Laviolette, coach of the Predators, last night firing up the troops right as the broadcast on the network begins. Now, no longer NBCSN. Now we're on to the network. The game hasn't started yet, but the broadcast on the network of NBC has began. So Laviolette's in the locker room. You know, they show Sullivan first for Pittsburgh, firing up the troops. All right, guys, we're going to skate. We're going to score. We're going to pass. Oh, wait, that's Jack Capuano. I'm sorry. The skate, score, pass. I'm sorry. But then they cut to Laviolette, and then he's giving his firing up the troop statement. Hey guys, we're gonna do this. You are starting, all right. And then he utters a word that begins with the letter F. And no, it wasn't freaking do this. He says we're going to F in do this. Yes, he said that, and it was audible on NBC. That's right, folks. The F word was used on NBC, and NBC didn't catch it until. Apparently, when Doc Emmerich, it was after the first TV timeout, about the 13-minute mark of the first period, Doc, coming back from commercial, issues an NBC-mandated apology for the network allowing a bad, naughty word to be spoken on network television. And I'm sure there were many Todd Flanders-inspired, my freaking ears, gasps after that naughty, bad word was spoken by Peter Laviolette and was not bleeped out by NBC. So, yes, you can definitely watch the video if you have not seen it. So please feel free to do so at your will. And very, very, it was funny because you definitely hear it. I mean, if you weren't paying that close attention, maybe you could have missed it, but it was definitely audible. And then as Doc, gives the apology, I was in hysterics. Anyway. The other thing I thought was funny too was when Pierre McGuire does his little, behind the bench interview that the coaches I'm sure all love. So he goes to to Laviolette. So Peter Laviolette is now the subject of two part of the 3-part hipster moment of Zenith. So he says, what is Pittsburgh doing that might cause your team, or what are they doing that's causing your team problems? So Laviolette looks up at the scoreboard, looks back at Pierre and says, they have 7 shots 32 minutes into the game. I think we're doing okay, was his exact quote to Pierre. So I enjoyed that one, and I'm sure all the critics of Pierre enjoyed that one as well. That's part 2. Part 3 of the hipster moment of Zenith took place also during the game, where a Nashville Predator fan made the trip to Western Pennsylvania from Nashville with a catfish that he purchased in Nashville. Brought it with him, snuck it into the game, and threw it onto the ice. Oh, how dare he? How dare he do such a terrible thing, right? So apparently, yes, how dare he do such a terrible thing, because he was removed from the game, which, okay, you expect that. He was also arrested and charged with disorderly conduct, disrupting a meeting. He disrupted a meeting with that catfish and possessing an instrument of a crime. That catfish, which I'm sure was a lot of people's dinner in Nashville this evening. For those of you listening in Nashville, that's right. You're eating a instrument of a crime. Shame on you. Or maybe good for you. You're devouring all these instruments of crimes. Those 3 things he was charged with. So I'm so glad they caught him. We can all sleep easy tonight that this dangerous criminal has been taken off the streets. Oh, thank God. Thank you, Pittsburgh police.
Like in a plastic bag, in a brown paper bag, in your pocket.
He put it in his crotch. He said he hid it in his crotch. That's what he said.
Oh my!
He put it. I think he wrapped it in something, and he literally stuffed it down his pants, and they didn't catch it. And Pittsburgh was making it a point of not selling catfishes unless you had a Pennsylvania or, if you had a Tennessee license, they were not selling you catfishes before. And now, of course, anytime during the series, they will not be selling you a catfish if you're from Tennessee. No, this was a Nashville catfish. This was not one purchased in Pittsburgh. He brought it up with him from Nashville, threw it onto the ice. How dare he? There you go. Your hipster moment is Zenith. 3-part hipster moment is Zenith, all courtesy of Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So good for other things besides the hockeys. And with that, that will take us, unless Mr. Hip, anything to add about the hipster moment is Zenith?
Take us away.
All right. Well, with that, that'll bring us to the, of course, final segment of the week. Everybody's favorite, yours and mine. It is, of course, known as the hipster beer of the week, and take it away, Mr. Hip.
All right, so we're going to mention a brewery that most listeners have probably heard of. They're very well known, in fact. No, it's not Budweiser. It's not Corona. It's Tecate.
Miller Coors.
Dogfish Head.
Oh.
So let's talk about Dogfish Head. Dogfish Head was pretty much one of the first microbreweries. They I didn't realize this, but they started in 1995.
Did they really? Damn.
So they've been around a really long time. And now, their beer is everywhere and they're ridiculously popular, and they're not like what we envision as a microbrewery today, but that's how they started. And so yesterday and today I was in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Dogfish Head started in Delaware, and their brewery today is still in Delaware, Milton, in a town called Milton. But what they have in Rehoboth Beach is a Dogfish Head brew pub that opened about, I think it was exactly 11 days ago. And at this Dogfish Head brew pub, which is it's pretty big for Rehoboth Beach when you consider the size of restaurants in Rehoboth Beach, which is pretty small. A vast dining room with a full menu, pizzas, and they have 6 exclusive brew pub beers that Dogfish Head makes. All the beer there's Dogfish Head. When I was there, so I was there last night, they must have had about 30 Dogfish Head beers on tap alone.
Ooh, I didn't even know there were that many. Damn.
Exactly. So there were 6 that they make, that the brewery makes only for this brew pub.
Damn. Oof.
And one of them was called Single Hop 1. It is a hop that comes from Brulat, and I apologize to the listeners from Brulat Farms of Toppenish, Washington, for the mispronunciation. And it's chock full of bright, juicy pineapple, lime, and papaya flavors and aromas. It was the best. So I tried all 6 exclusives. This was my favorite. So a convenient way to bring Dogfish Head to our podcast, even though they're so well known. If you're in Rehoboth Beach, which is a fun little beach town, check out the Dogfish Head Brew Pub. And that was not paid for by Dogfish Head Brewery.
We will be at an adjacent beach community in only about a little over a month or so. Maybe we'll have to stop into the brew pub.
The word community might be a bit of a stretch. I would say more like a SHIT show.
Bleep, NBC, bleep. Yeah, all right.
So over now, okay. We will be back next week with some discussion of how the final series are progressing, and some baseball and whatever else may arise. Yes. So live and live.
All right. Next. All right. Yes. Best. See you next week.
Here come the ship and the